Coming up.
And you're wondering where God is. God, why that promotion ain't came yet? Why that mate ain't came yet? Or whatever is going on in y'all. You think you understand this. So you think you got the formula, the solution for all the things that you're wanting and to come into your life to happen. And you're questioning God. You may not have come out and said verbally spoke the questions, but in your spirit, you're questioning God. God, why aren't you answering me? Where are you right now in my life right now, God? You know I need you. You know I'm hurting. You know you're not listening to me. You're saying all this stuff. And God says, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Surely you know, since you know everything.
Hello, and welcome to One by One, the broadcast ministry of Pastor Robert Scott of Quench Life Christian Fellowship.
What does it look like to truly pray without ceasing? In this powerful series, Pastor Robert and his wife Carolyn unpack the fullness of prayer, showing how each type of prayer plays a vital role in a believer's life. Whether you're new to prayer or seeking to grow stronger in your faith, these messages will challenge and equip you to live a life marked by intentional, ongoing connection with God. Here's the third message in the series, Prayers of Confession.
Part 3.
So Jesus says, whoever acknowledges me before others, I will acknowledge. Whoever disowns me before others, I will disown. Here's the notion here, is Jesus is saying, if you acknowledge me, I'll acknowledge you. But he's also saying, if you don't acknowledge me, you have disowned me. In other words, there's no middle ground. Either you're going to acknowledge me or you're not. And by the fact that you don't acknowledge me, you're disowning me. Because you didn't acknowledge me. So you say, well, I didn't do nothing. Yeah, right. You didn't. That's the problem. You didn't acknowledge me. Right? But I didn't do nothing. Yeah, exactly. Doing nothing is not good enough. God sent his son, his only begotten son, to die for the sins of the world. God himself walked on the earth, died for the sins of the world, and then you didn't acknowledge it. By not acknowledging him, you just disowned him. And we forget that we can oppose God even if we didn't say or do anything that's opposing. Because by not acknowledging, you're opposing. You're saying that he doesn't exist. And we'll touch on that a little later too, a little bit more. And so it's the lack of confession that makes you wrong. Some sins you can commit. There's sins of commission, but then there's sins of omission, where you didn't do something that becomes your sin. Not that you have to do something sinful, but not doing the right thing is sinful. And in this case, the right thing is acknowledging Jesus Christ. And I wanted to touch on that because it speaks to the story in Nebuchadnezzar. About Nebuchadnezzar. Here in Daniel 4:29 through 37, it says, 12 months later, all right, as the king was walking on the roof of the royal palace of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar was the king of Babylon. And so 12 months later after what? It's not on your paper, but I want to talk about it a little bit. This was 12 months after Nebuchadnezzar had been given a translation of a dream he had. All right? And that dream wasn't a good dream. It meant doom for him. And so now he's walking on the roof of his royal palace. His kingdom was huge. He was rich. It was very, very glorious, his kingdom. And look what he says, verse 30. He said, is not this the great Babylon I have built? as the royal residence by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty. Yeah, y'all see this? He had been given an interpretation of a dream that meant that, no, you're going to lose your kingdom. But now he's gloating in his majesty and his power and what he's built. Now, and what we're going to see is the fact that you didn't acknowledge God. That's where you messed up. All right? We're going to see that. In fact, the dream, he had already gotten a dream about it. And so that's where he messed up. And look what it says, verse 31. Even as the words was on his lips. Y'all, listen now. Even as the words were on his lips, a voice came from heaven. This is what is decreed for you, King Nebuchadnezzar. Your royal authority has been taken from you. All right. We just saw Isaiah say, woe to me. I'm a man of unclean lips. And I'm living with all these other unclean lip folk. Nebuchadnezzar here is saying, look at what I've done. Look at my majesty. Look at all these folk who are under me. Yeah. And the text tells us, as these words was coming off his unclean lips that he didn't acknowledge that were unclean, God says, your kingdom is gone. Taking it away. There's something here, y'all. Look what it goes on to say. Verse 32. It's one thing to take the kingdom away, but look how God did it. Verse 32. You will be driven away from people and will live with wild animals. Okay, let's pause right there. All right. So God tells King Nebuchadnezzar that, yeah, this thing that you think you built is taken away, and I'm going to show you just how much is taken away and what your fate will be. And you're going to live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like an ox. Okay. It gets worse. He says 7 times will pass by, and it's saying 7 years. 7 times will pass by for you until you acknowledge that the Most High God, the Most High, is sovereign over all kingdoms on the earth and gives them to anyone he wishes. So pause right here. God says specifically to him, I'm taking your kingdom away and I'm going to take you down. I'm not just taking you down from your throne. I'm taking the throne away, and then I'm taking you down to where you're going to eat grass like an ox. And it's going to stay that way until you acknowledge me. Yeah. Right? Until you confess me. Until you confess that I'm sovereign and I govern over all kingdoms. It said that's how it's going to be. Right. Verse 33, immediately what had happened said about Nebuchadnezzar was fulfilled. Immediately. Right. Remember, as it was coming off his lips, the word came. And then immediately he went from walking on the roof of his palace to eating grass. Y'all get this. Understand this. Understand. Immediately he went to eating grass. Living with the wild animals. It gets worse. It gets worse. All right. And then it reads on. Immediately what had happened about Nebuchadnezzar was fulfilled. He was driven away from people and ate grass like the ox. His body was drenched with dew of heaven until his hair grew like the feathers of an eagle and his nails like the claws of birds. So he's not only was he living with the wild animals and eating grass like an ox, he was looking like a wild animal, right? And while he was doing it with claws like a bird and feathers like an eagle. Y'all see, you talking about how God can take us down. Oh yeah, he can take us down. He can take us way down. Some of y'all might know what I'm talking about. And so God did that to him. And he did that because he lifted up himself and not the Most High God. I'm wondering with you, is there an area in your life where you're talking about yourself and you're not lifting up God? That's your prayer. You need to learn something here from Nebuchadnezzar. Look what it says, verse 34. At the end of that time, the 7 years, I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes toward heaven. Oh, y'all see this? Yeah. Nebuchadnezzar says, oh, okay. I get it. I got it now. I got it. my eyes are open. So Nebuchadnezzar say, I raised my eyes toward the heaven. And guess what happened? The text says, and my sanity was restored. Okay. And remember, God said, until you acknowledge, this is going to be your state. He acknowledged God. So we see the implication here that he confessed his wrong. He acknowledged God. And God says, and until you do that, this is going to be your state. And then he said immediately his sanity was restored. That's the kind of God we serve. Right? God can take you down, but he can also lift you up. Right? This Bible says that this is the difference between pride and humility. Yeah, and how God feels about the prideful and what he does for those that are humble and how he lifts them up. And so the text reads on. Then I praised the Most High. I honored and glorified him who lives forever. His dominion is an eternal dominion. His kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the peoples of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as he pleases with the powers of heaven and the peoples of the earth. No one can hold back his hand. Y'all see all this praise is coming out of him now, Nebuchadnezzar. No one can hold back his hand or say to him, what have you done? At the same time that my sanity was restored, my honor and splendor returned to me for the glory of my kingdom. My advisors and nobles sought me out, and I was restored to my throne and became even greater than before. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and exalt and glorify the King of heaven, because everything he does is right. Everything, even making me eat like an ox, was right. All his ways are just, and those who walk in pride, he is able to humble. Yes, he is. Oh yeah. So we see the therapeutic side of confession. Yeah. Right? The Nebuchadnezzar confessing God, giving prayer of confession, brought back his sanity. Amen. And then assured his future and showed that he was saved. And he started to practice praise of God, not just praise of himself. Right? And then the last I want to give you is by Job. Write that down, by Job. All right. And so you guys know the story of Job, how he was rich and righteous, and God had a conversation with the devil. And devil said he only served you because you protect him, you're good to him. If you do good things, you don't do good things for him, he's going to curse you to your face. David said, oh, no, not Job. Job is righteous. So you guys know the story. Took everything away, lost his 10 kids. His wife lost her mind. You know the story. But I want to talk to you about what happened, what caused Job to pray prayer confession. All right. And so Job, through all his pains, and he got sick, he was having boils and everything. He was desperately sick. His friends came to visit him. They didn't help at all. They just made things worse. But along the way, Job was questioning God. And he wasn't just questioning God. Job was accusing God of not being just and doing what's right. Okay, we just heard Nebuchadnezzar say all God's ways and everything he does is right. Right? Job was saying, God, it can't be right because I've done so many great things. I help the widows. I father the fatherless. I do all these great things. And people were praising me and honoring me when I go places. And because I treat people well, I give of all my possessions. Job, I'm going to tell y'all right now, none of us was as righteous as Job. I don't care what it is that you're doing. You wasn't like Job. You wasn't like Job. Okay, you were not like Job. So don't even think it. Just so if Job could get to the place where things got so bad that he was like questioning God's justness, your righteousness, and God, you're not listening to me. I'm sure you can get or have been to the same place in your life. And Job, none of us was like Job. And it wasn't the sin, Job's sin, that brought all this calamity on him, like his friends was trying to tell him. But it was a sin for Job to justify himself rather than God. Through all of this, it was a sin for Job to claim God wasn't hearing him and that God was unjustly punishing him, or that God considered him an enemy. Job said all these things. He was sinning then. He didn't sin to get into the situation, but in the situation, he started sinning, right? And he started asking God questions. Where are you? Why aren't you here? Why aren't you listening? And all of that. And so our text picks up here in Job 38, 1 through 5. After Job said all this stuff, it says, then the Lord spoke to Job out of the storm. He said, who is this that obscures my plans with words without knowledge? Oh, yeah. This ought to be ringing some of your bells. Anybody been there? I know I have, where I was talking about stuff I didn't know nothing about that had to do with God. I didn't know nothing about it. I didn't understand how God works. God says, who is this? Raising questions to me, obscuring my plans, and they don't even know nothing, right? Who is this to Job? And Job was righteous, so I know this relates to y'all, because none of us are righteous was as righteous as Job. And he said, who is this? In verse 3, brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me, God says to Job. Where were you when I laid the earth and the earth's foundation? Excuse me. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Oh, yeah. Job says, no, I'm going to question you. God says to Job, no, I'm going to question you. You questioning me in my presence, and where am I in your life? God, you ain't showing up. You're not doing me right, God. Well, I ain't did nothing. All these questions that you got. God says, well, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Right? Where were you? Right? And then God goes on and says to him, tell me if you understand. Right? Since you know everything, you understand so much, tell me about the foundations of the earth. Right? And then he says, who marked off its dimensions? Who marked off the dimensions of the foundation of the earth? And who did that? And then God says, surely Mr. Smart know everything. Right? Obviously you think you know everything. Hopefully, y'all hearing this. Is that there's things going on in your life right now that you're trying to figure out, you're wrestling with. You're trying to figure out maybe in your relationships, on your job, or in your life, or in your career. You're trying to figure it all out, and you think you know something. and you're wondering where God is. God, why that promotion ain't came yet? Why that mate ain't came yet? Or whatever is going on in y'all. You think you understand this. So you think you got the formula, the solution for all the things that you're wanting and to come into your life to happen. And you're questioning God. You may not have come out and said verbally spoke the questions, but in your spirit, you're questioning God. God, why aren't you answering me? Where are you right now in my life right now, God? You know I need you. You know I'm hurting. You know you're not listening to me. You're saying all this stuff. And God says, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Surely you know, since you know everything. And after God, for 4 more chapters, God was raising questions to Job. He started talking about the clouds, the lightning, just everything, all the creation. God just started laying it out for 4 chapters, asking Job questions. Y'all get this? Yeah. And Job was going through all this hard time, and God says, no, you sit back and you listen to me now. You answer my questions. Okay. And God did that up until chapter 42. And then look what it says here, Job 42, 1-6. Then Job replied to the Lord, I know that you can do all things. No purpose of yours can be thwarted. You asked, who is this that obscures my plans without knowledge? Surely I spoke of things I did not understand. Job says, God, after all that, I've been listening to you for 4 chapters. and I come to the point that I was talking about stuff I had no clue about. And I'm coming to tell y'all today, y'all talking some stuff, I'm talking some stuff I ain't got no clue about. Or thinking some stuff. Yeah, in your spirit, you're thinking it, and you may not be saying it, but you're thinking it, and God hears your thoughts, And so you might as well just say it to God, because God knows anyway, right? And God is like, and you think you understand. I want to tell you right now, there are things about living this life, living this Christian life, that you think you understand, that you don't. Okay. And we got to always be open and understand that about ourselves. I don't know. That's why the scripture said, don't lean to your own understanding, but trust God, right? And so we think we understand. So Job thought he understood, but he didn't. And now he's admitting it. He says, surely I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know. You said, listen now, and I will speak. I will question you, and you shall answer me. My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. This is powerful. Job was a righteous man by God's standards. God declared that Job was righteous. And Job practiced righteousness. It wasn't just talk, he lived it. He was helping people. He was a giving person. He was all those things that we would say was right. God said he was righteous, and he was. And even Job says, I thought I knew you. I had heard about you. He said, but now I truly know you and see you. I will come to tell you right now, there's some aspects of God we have no clue about. And so we need to be open that there's some things I don't understand. And Job says, now, Lord, from this experience, I've seen you.
You've been listening to One by One. Here's a personal message from Pastor Robert.
You may have never said yes to Jesus Christ. Do you know that God loved you so much that he sent his son to die for your sin? If you're ready to say yes to the love that God showed, pray this prayer. Lord God, I admit that I've sinned against you. I believe that Jesus Christ died for my sin, and I commit my life to you. I ask that you come into my life, come into my heart, take control. Transform me into the character of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. If you prayed that prayer, I want to be the first to welcome you to the family of God. And I want to encourage you to find a church where you can learn more about Jesus, draw closer to God, and to other believers. God bless you.
To learn more about Quench Life Christian Fellowship, go to quenchlife.org. Weekly services are held online every Sunday at 11 a.m., and our hybrid services, offered in person and online, are held on the first and third Sundays. You can also find information on our Bible Life group, men's and women's gatherings, and our social media channels where we share encouragement and ministry updates. Quench Life is located at 7080 Donlin Way, Suite 217 in Dublin, California. Again, visit quenchlife.org for details. Thank you for listening.